In this video, we will discuss about chemical properties of carbon compounds. Now, we will study about some of the very important chemical properties of carbon compounds. This is a very important and an interesting topic. So, whenever we talk about the chemical property, the very basic one is combustion. So, carbon in all its allotropic forms burns an oxygen to give rise to carbon dioxide along with the release of heat and light. So whenever carbon in its allotropic forms, that is diamond, graphite and Buckminster fullerene or C60, undergoes combustion in the presence of oxygen, it gives carbon dioxide along with the release of heat and light. The reaction goes as follows, that is carbon C plus oxygen O2 gives rise to CO2, that is carbon dioxide with the release of heat and light. And this is a particularly completely balanced equation. So now you can see a flame here. So whenever a particular substance burns, it gives a flame. So this is bright yellow colored sooty flame. And you can also see another flame which is non-sooty, which is blue in color. So why do we see two different kinds of flames? So why are some flames sooty and why are some flames non-sooty? What kind of compounds produce sooty and what kind of compounds produce non-sooty flame? So to know all about it, just move further. So saturated hydrocarbons will give a clean and a non-sooty flame, while unsaturated hydrocarbons give yellow and a sooty flame. So saturated hydrocarbons are alkanes which have single bond, so they will give clean and a non-sooty flame which is blue in color, while unsaturated hydrocarbons, that is alkenes and alkynes which have double and triple bonds, will give a yellow and sooty flame which is included with a lot of smoke. But however, even saturated hydrocarbons will also give sooty flame if there is no adequate supply of oxygen. For example, if there is no sufficient oxygen present, then even the saturated hydrocarbons will give a bright yellow sooty flame along with flame that has smoke. Now if you can see here, this is a stove that we use at our homes. So all of us know about it and we use it in our daily life. So this particular stove is provided with a lot of holes on it because these particular holes provide adequate supply of oxygen. That is why it burns efficiently with a non-sooty flame that is blue in color. But sometimes the bottom of vessels turn black when placed on a stove because air holes get blocked and a lot of fuel is wasted. Now just look at this vessel. So this vessel, the bottom of this vessel has completely turned black because when it is put on a stove, the air holes which are present in the stove got blocked. So there is no adequate supply of oxygen. So a lot of soot is being attached to that vessel and that is why it turned black. So to avoid all this, we need to clean the stove regularly. Fuels like coal and petrol have small amount of sulfur and nitrogen, hence their combustion form oxides of nitrogen and sulfur which pollute atmosphere. So it is proved that there are tiny amounts of sulfur and nitrogen are present in coal and petrol, and whenever they undergo combustion, that is whenever they are burnt, they produce oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, and these oxides of nitrogen and sulfur will pollute atmosphere. So the very important example that is not in the syllabus but it is something very important is, that is the additional one, is the acid rain, which is actually affecting the most beautiful monument like the Taj Mahal, is because of the oxides of nitrogen and sulfur. So whenever the oxides of nitrogen and sulfur get mixed up with the atmosphere, they come down as acid rain. And when these acids form on that marble, white marble of Taj Mahal, it is ruined and it is turning from white to pale yellow. So the oxides of nitrogen and sulfur are very dangerous. So why do a substance burn with or without a flame? So for example, if we can see, this is a substance which is burning with a sooty flame and this with a non-sooty flame. But can you see this? There is no flame at all. It's just burning bright red. There is no flame. So there are some substances like wood, charcoal. So these are the substances. Have you ever heard or have you ever seen the burning of coal and wood? So whenever you burn a tree, that is a substance containing wood, Initially, there is flame because the moisture content and everything is there, right? So there is initially flame, but after that, they just continue to burn in this bright red. So, what is the main reason? Coal and wood do not give out flame, but they just burn out red, giving heat. Why? So, the reason is flame is produced only when gaseous substances are burnt. When wood and coal are burnt, initially the volatile substances present will burn with a flame in the beginning, but later seen glowing red. So, the flame is only observed when the gaseous substance is burned, or when a solid or a liquid substance is burnt, there is no flame observed at all. So when wood and coal are burnt, so they're solids, so we don't observe a flame. But initially there is some moisture content, some gases, so initially we can see a flame because of the volatile substances, but later it is seen just glowing red. Because the color of the flame produced by each element is the characteristic property of that particular element. So we have seen before there is sooty flame, there is non-sooty flame, and there are also burning without a flame in red. So flames are of different colors. So particular element will burn with a particular flame. For example, let us take copper. You can see this is a blue color flame. So copper, when it is burnt or it is undergoing combustion, then it burns in bright blue color flame. So to get into additional information, let us also see about few other compounds. This is barium. So barium is another element. When it burns, it gives green color. The flame is in green. So this is so colorful. You can see so many compounds here. So this is lithium. So lithium, when it is actually burnt, it gives a color called crimson red. Crimson red. See, you can see a red color flame. So this is lithium. And when strontium is burned, strontium gives rise to bright red color. And when it's sodium, it gives almost a bright yellow color. And it's copper, you can see the same color, that is bright blue. And when it is potassium, it gives rise to a light bluish, very like it's more or less a non-sooty flame. So these are the different flames that are given by different compounds. So the color of the flame is the characteristic property of a particular element. Every element has its own flame color. How are coal and petroleum formed? So we have discussed that coal and petrol are very important and they are very active in combustion. But how actually are these two compounds formed? Coal and petrol are formed from biomass which has been subjected to various biogeological processes. So, coal and petrol are formed from biomass. Bio means something which is living mass that is subjected to various biogeological processes, biological and geological processes. So, what is a biological process? Something that is living. That's a living process. Geological is something that's happening inside the earth. So, or something that's happening on the surface of earth. So, that's a geological process. So, due to these biological and geological changes or the processes, coal and petrol are formed. Coal is formed from the remains of trees, ferns, and other plants that lived millions of years ago. So, trees, ferns, and other plants, just plants. So, when these plants live for a few years, then they die, then they decompose, and they move inside the earth. And after several millions of years, they convert into coal. Let's see how that happens. See, this is complete green area, and when these trees actually decompose, the leaves and all, the swamp deposit, that is called swamp, so those get partially decayed. See, they get decayed and they form peat. So this is all additional information. So this is just to improve or know what actually happens in the formation of coal. So it turns into peat. So after several million years, this peat will convert to form coal. So that is how the coal formation takes place. So coal is completely formed from the dead remains of trees, ferns, and other plants that used to live millions of years ago. So, oil and gas are the remains of several plants and animals that lived in a sea. When they died, they sunk, covered by slit, and decomposed by bacteria. They turn into oil and gas under high pressures. Meanwhile, the slit is slowly decomposed in the rock and the oils are trapped like water in a sponge. So if you can see here, this is a water body. When all these living animals or plants present in the water body dies, like the fish or these trees, these are the organic waste. When they die, they just get decomposed into the soil and they're decomposed by the bacteria and they form a sediment and sand. There are into some covered by slit or sand. So after a few years, even the sand gets very well, hardened and it forms slit, and this slit is completely decomposed and formed into a rock, and this particular rock is so hard and the oils are trapped inside that rock like a water in a sponge. So whenever we take a sponge and when we dip it into a bucket of water, then how the water gets absorbed by the sponge, how it's trapped inside the sponge. So like the same, when the rock is present in this particular point or particular place, when the complete sand or the slit is slowly decomposed and hardened, it forms a rock. So this particular oils are trapped inside this rock, just like a water that is trapped inside a sponge. So this is how petrol is formed, that is oil. Thank you.